Hello, dog family. I'm Asia and I'm a dog trainer. And thanks so much for tuning in today. Today, I want to talk about dogs and dog daycare play groups. What it means when your dog didn't make it into the play group. This is something that I hear a lot from my clients. And there's a lot of misconception about what's kind of going on in the dog daycare process that I would like to illuminate. So, if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. And thanks so much for tuning in. So, dog daycare. So, first of all, I just want to preface it with the fact that I think all trainers can agree that dog daycare is a relatively unnatural thing. Now, is it something that a lot of dogs enjoy? Yeah. It's a bunch of dogs playing. Like, what could be more fun than that if you're a dog who likes that kind of thing? But the numbers, like how many dogs are in some of these daycare groups, tends to be much more than what would be in like a regular dog pack if they were wild dogs, for example. And there's just kind of a lot more to it. Like they're with each other for a long time during the day, whereas dogs in like a natural, like if they were little street dogs or something, they would kind of have periods where they go off and do their own little things or whatever with maybe one or two dogs or somebody sleeping over here. It's a little different than everybody's just like party 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 all day in these rooms or in these yards and things like these dog daycares. The main design of dog daycares is to help your dog like get some socializing, stretch around, and walk around, get some exercise. I do always tell folks that want to use dog daycares, it is secondary exercise though. It really is frustrating how many people will drop their dogs off, very hyper dogs, for dog daycares that are they haven't exercised in days and this dog is just like a bomb going off when it goes into that play group, and inevitably tends to get separated from the group because they need to calm down for an hour or something before they can even go out and play. So, just want to put that note in there for anybody who's using it as their primary daycare or their primary exercise. Maybe think about having another exercise plan in addition to the times of daycare that you're dropping your dog off, please, for the health and well-being of everybody, especially your dog. So that aside, dog daycares, all the ones that I'm familiar with have a process where they see if the dog can integrate well safely into the group. They're looking for different behaviors. Is the dog going to cower and be upset? Is the dog going to try to bite? Things like that would automatically fail the dog. What they're looking for is the dog just going to happily, wiggly, kind of go in there and say, hi, friends, and start sniffing and let other dogs sniff them, and away they go to play and do their dog stuff. Now, all the dog daycares that I'm aware of have an attendant that's in the room with them. Definitely check that this is part of what they do wherever you're thinking of taking your dog, because that to me is essential, to have a person on site, like in the room with them or in the yard with them, that can essentially be like the teacher or the hall monitor that's like, hey, you're not, no, stop, like you do that, or be able to grab somebody and be like, you need to go on a little reset back in your little suite or whatever if they're just getting cranky or something like that. Safety first is what the people are able to provide in those situations. Dogs, they don't really care so much about safety. They more just care about controlling the situation. If a dog is getting out of control, it can get quite violent. So we don't want that to happen. So if your dog has had some trouble getting into the play group, there's a couple of things going on here. And of course, as a trainer, I'm going to bring it back around to the fact that what I see over and over is dogs that have not been able to get into daycare. It is not a matter of just dropping your dog off there more and then getting frustrated with the staff. Like, why isn't my dog in daycare yet? Why are they still only playing with the staff? Why can't they go into the play group with the other dogs? That's not how it works, folks. Like, we got to get the dog so that they can regulate their nervous system, essentially, to be able to handle going into that big group of playful dogs. So that boils back down to, we got to train into it. What your dog is demonstrating, if they either have cowered in the corner or they've gotten aggressive towards other dogs, or they just generally are not like doing acceptable behaviors that are sociable when they go into the play group, that's indicating that they don't they just don't like it. Their nervous system is overwhelmed. So what I see a lot is that we can't actually train into them enjoying it, being happy little pack members in the play pack. But we have to look at, okay, where's this starting from? Is the dog super intimidated and scared? Okay, then we need to work on training methods to build their confidence, which there are actually methods to do that. And we can teach you how to do that as trainers. So that's one side of it. The other side is, does the dog go in like, crazy town and is putting their feet all over everybody and maybe even biting, or just cannot, down regulate their nervous system and is just being too excitable in there, which can be very, very dangerous and is the number one way that a dog fight can start. Then that's a whole other thing. We got to teach that dog some training methods to essentially down regulate. Things I like to look for are, does the dog try to bite at you when, new people go towards it? Does the dog just kind of jump all over everybody when it's out on walks or when a new person comes in the house? Does the dog just kind of, run the house essentially? Those are places to start when we're looking at training, that we've got to get that kind of stuff under control. We've got to just teach them that there are rules of the road if you want to be interacting with other people, other dogs. Another really important thing is, can they take instruction from strangers? Because like I said, they have the attendants for everybody's safety in these play groups. They need to be able to be like, hey, so-and-so, whatever the dog's name is, they need to be able to turn and be like, oh, that's me. Stop what they're doing. Come to the attendant. Like, that's a very important thing. Dogs that cannot respond in that way, especially when they're excited, it's a problem. And that is something that I've seen a lot of dogs get dismissed from the play group, at least temporarily, and maybe they have to get a little refresher on training type of thing, if not permanently, because that, it's just not safe for anybody to have dogs that go completely deaf and non-responsive when there's a potentially sticky situation starting to develop that maybe that dog isn't noticing, but maybe another dog is getting uncomfortable with what's happening. And, the attendants are all trained in how to recognize that kind of stuff and intercept it. And if the dog isn't, it comes down to seconds at a time. If that dog isn't listening, that's a problem. So recall is a really important one for all the trainers, all the home trainers out there who are already working on good stuff with their dogs. Always freshen up on your recall when you have your dog in daycare. Get them nice and sharp. Have lots of friends call them to them and get used to, strangers and new people saying their name and coming back. Sitting and staying, just practicing self-control generally. That's like a basic form of self-control, is another one to just stay fresh on. And I recommend working on this kind of stuff a couple times a week, work on it every day if you can. That would be amazing. But we want the dogs to just be in a flow of responsiveness, of, just listening and being ready to go be members of this little social group. That includes people that are going to be talking to them and telling them things. There's a lot of instruction to be given of like, we're going down this hallway. They're moving between different spaces in most of these daycare facilities. And everybody needs to be responsive and listening and not being a troublemaker in those moments. So anyway, so take heart if your dog did not make it into daycare in this time of taking them in to try, and it just seems like, gosh, every time I drop them off, nothing's improving. Ask the facility, do they have a trainer that they recommend? A lot of places have trainers on site that can help you and just get in their schedule. They'll have specific processes that they know work for their particular facility even. And like I said, drill down on what are some things that you could freshen up on your own with your dog to just help them behaviorally be able to be responsive in the correct ways. But the other piece of it is, some dogs just don't like big play groups, and that's just the way it is. One of my mentors, she was so funny. She was like, there's coffee shop dogs and there are nightclub dogs, and you're not going to get a lot of crossover between those two sometimes. Now, that being said, I have seen some coffee shop dogs not necessarily become nightclub dogs. I don't want to go party and be crazy with everybody, but they at least will get into the group and kind of like find their other little clique of maybe more quiet dogs. And then I've seen the opposite of dogs who are like too crazy and we're going nuts as soon as we went in there and failed their little test to get in. They were able to kind of get more self-control, quiet down a little bit. Maybe sometimes they ramp up too much and they have to like go on a little, reset for a half hour or something when they're in the play group. That's okay. But in general, they were able to learn how to rate their behavior a little bit better, how to just regulate their nervous system better, essentially. That's really what it all comes down to. So, yeah. So I hope that this message is encouraging to you. And I think the important thing also is just, I always like to remind everybody, don't be comparing your dog to a friend's dog or somebody else's dog. If your dog doesn't like daycare, that's okay. Like I don't like going to the movie theater, for example. It's like too much sitting down. So it frustrates a lot of people in my family, but that's okay. We have other ways that we go have fun. Like I take them out on walks. Anyway, I'm making people sound like they're dogs. We all just have our preferences, and our dogs do too, is my point. So enjoy learning who your dog is. And just discovering different ways to keep them exercised and stimulated. And that's really, I think, what dog parents are always looking for when they want to get into their dog into play groups, is to just have them have a diverse experience and have them enjoy their life and make some friends. And maybe, if your dog is one of the ones who's more of a coffee shop dog, maybe it's just like they want to have one or two friends from the neighborhood that are more on their speed, that just want to kind of lay around together or sniff around in the yard together and aren't necessarily wanting to like run and jump and, do stuff like that. So yeah. So, and that's totally fine. That's healthy too. So, all right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, and just keep loving your pets well. And thank you so much. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.